So next we will have Iqra talking about prompting in LLMs.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, you are experiencing a deeper dive into the structural and conceptual things related to LLM. And I'm here to take you to the journey, a walkthrough of the prompting techniques. The scope of the talk is not about how the text goes and how the text comes out of the model, but it's just the text, how to articulate the text, and what to do with the text to get the best out of the model. So a prompt is basically a text that goes inside the LLM, and it would change the behavior of how the LLM behaves. I would say that it's more like a directive for the LLM, or it gives path to LLM to change the behavior. And the art of designing that text, that like how do you design that text that goes inside the model, is called prompt engineering. And there is definitely a lot of talk about prompt engineering on LinkedIn, as Rohit just talked about. Like, we also saw some positions, some job postings for prompt engineering, and it's we should agree that it's not a joke anymore. So the agenda for today's task is how some high-level intuitions about how the prompts are built, and how do we think about prompts, like some high-level intuitions about that. And I'll talk about some of the prompting techniques, not all of them, but mostly that are used will be included in the discussion, and then some effective prompting techniques from the researchers in Meta AI mostly, and that I have incorporated that will help you to learn how to write the effective prompts. Okay, so how the prompts are made. Whenever you think about prompt, you think it in two ways: from the end-to-end user's perspective and from how the developers build it. So from the end-to-end user, like for example, you and me, if we are using some pre-built application, how do we write a prompt? And if you think about like in the developer's perspective, how do developers curate the prompt to solve the problem? In the first example, you see that I'm asking ChatGPT to translate the following sentence from English to Norwegian. Like, hi, I'm Iqra. Let's have a talk about giving prompts to ChatGPT without knowing how it is doing the task. So it will translate it into the language, but with a warning that I do not know how the language is translated, so you may need to ask the professional about it. So that's something for the end user. But in the developer's perspective, I have taken this screenshot from LangChain just to show you that how small the coding is getting. It has three basic things from the developer's perspective. You give a template. That again is the basic text that we give as an end-to-end user. And it has a variable in it that is changeable. According to this, the template would be adopted, and then the format gets the actual variable name. So it goes like, I want you to act as a naming consultant for a company. And what is a good name for a company that makes the variable? And that goes like, for example, colorful socks. So that's how the prompts are built from the developer's perspective. Then if you need to talk to LLM, there are basically 4 elements. Some says 5, some says 4, but 4 are typically must. So the prompt elements include input text. For example, you are an expert sentiment analyzer. We are telling LLM that you are going to play a role of a sentiment analyzer. And in the instruction, you say that classify the given text into positive, negative, or neutral, for example. Then the third element is questions. This is basically the text that we want him to analyze as a sentiment analyzer. Like text says that I enjoy prompt engineering. And this fourth one is actually optional, which says that I do not like to code, which is a negative one. And we are telling it already that you need to output this in that way. Like you need to say, either positive or negative or neutral. So output format is also very necessary to give in order to talk better with LLM. So the use cases, you already know that we can do text generation with that, question answering, code generation, role playing, text classification, reasoning, art generation, and other things. Yeah.
There was questions, but what you had an example that was not the question.
No, it's like the prompt element is something, question is something that the text we are going to give it. Like, do it on this task. You can call it a task or a question.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not exactly the question, but what we want him to focus on, the text, the query, that. Okay, so modern probabilistic prompts are getting better. Instead of just giving a simple prompt, we can ask our LLM model to think about what you are going to say. And all the prompting techniques that you basically see these days are kind of using the same model. So it is basically a base. It's from a very early paper. It says that we are defining a function with a question: who was the president during moon landing, for example. So the question yields thought, and then the thought yields an answer and return the answer. So we are using, the question is given, then it thinks about it, and then it gives the answer. So these three things are basically, I would say, reused in so many techniques. You hear about zero shot, few shot, a chain of thought. Everything is using somehow an amalgamation of these three things. So remember that it's just asking. It's not just about asking, it's about how you ask. Now I'll shift to the prompting techniques. This slide is just to show you that it's a quick dive on how modern prompting evolved. It started from simple queries and directing basic outputs, like translate into French. And then came layered prompting, which introduced context and depth into it. Like, there was some basic prompting, okay, the question and answer. Then they came up with the idea of introducing context and depth into prompting. Then the dynamic interactions came to get evolved, where they use real-time adjustment and feedbacks in the loop. Like, started from basic, then the context was given, and then some real-time adjustments started to came into the picture. And then personalized prompts for what Rohit just talked about, for example, fine-tuning on my needs. So tailored to individual user profile and preferences, like translate this poem to French, keeping my love for nature in mind. Like, I'm giving my specificity here. And then meta prompting, prompts to prompt, like prompts that guide the model on how to think about prompts. Like instructing the model that I'm giving you prompts, and these are prompts, and how to think about prompts. So starting from basic prompting, this was basically the 5 basic evolutions that we see in the world of prompt engineering.
So the structure that you showed, the 5 steps, context, which would they fall, in which category would they fall? You showed
the first one.
Yeah, you showed the 5.
I would say that it's a layered prompting, I think, because it involves the context, not just question.
And not meta prompting?
No, it's not prompting about prompts. It's involving the thought in it, the context in it. Okay, here are some famous and mostly used prompting techniques. So the first one is zero shot. A model is asked to perform a task that it has not been trained on. For example, I'm happy with the service. Since he was happy, the model is going to say it was good. So it wasn't trained on it, but it predicted based on its own thinking. Then comes the few shot, in which, for example, a model is given a prompt with few examples. Rohit just had a little talk about it. Like, for example, my service was awesome. positive, given my order was never arrived, negative, thanks for the great services, positive, and then you have to predict about horrible customer service, which is positive. So based on the context he learned from the previous things, it is going to label the last one based on the context of the previous examples. Then comes chain of thought, as the name suggests, like and the picture that I showed you earlier, like thought about thought. So it or chunks of thought. Like a model is enabled for complex reasoning capabilities through intermediate reasoning steps. For example, Roger has 5 tennis balls. He buys 2 more cans of tennis ball, with each having 3 tennis balls. How many tennis balls would it have? This is already given to the model, and this is something we want him to predict. This is already given to the model, and this is something we want him to predict. So we need to focus to the second part. The cafeteria had 23 apples. If they used 20 to make the lunch and bought 6 more. So the common reasoning would be, chain of thought would be 23 minus 20, because they have used it in the lunch, and then the remaining 3 would be added to 6. If it is not going to think about the internal things happening here, like chain of thought is not here, then he is going to answer directly 27, but which is wrong. But if there is some reasoning and thought involved in the process, then the model is going to predict 9 correctly. And 9 is the actual answer, actually. So that's something provoke the reasoning capabilities of a model. Then you hear about self-ask prompting many times. It is basically a model is given a prompt with a few example LLM reasoning is shown explicitly, like example reasoning is shown explicitly, and the LLM also decomposes the question into similar follow-up questions. Like follow-up questions are already given to ChatGPT, for example, and based on that format, it follows the next question. For example, direct prompting is not going to answer it. Even chain of thought fails in it. But self-ask prompting, like, for example, if I ask, if we are going to ask that who was the president of US when superconductivity was discovered. So our follow-up question needed here. In the previous example, we said yes. Then in the follow-up question, he is going to say yes. When was superconductivity discovered? Superconductivity was discovered in 1911. And the president of US at 11. Yeah, like the idea basically is the model itself decomposes the question into smaller chunks and then tries to answer himself, and we get a good answer in the end. So self-asking about follow-up questions. So this also has been used. And then comes the React prompting. The idea of React is to combine thought, reasoning, and observation to get the final answer. Like here, what we are giving the model is to reason and act accordingly. The question is, aside from Apple Remote, what other devices can control the program Apple Remote was originally designed to interact with? Think of it as a human. Like, okay, we will start thinking about it like, I need to search Apple Remote first. I need to search about it, like what was Apple Remote originally designed for. For example, I need to search Apple Remote and find program it was originally designed for. Apple Remote was designed for, okay, this. And the important information the model gets after observation is front row media center. And this is definitely not the answer of the question. So the thought too comes into play, like Apple Remote was originally designed to control front row media center. I need to search for front row, that what the front row basically is. Then the observation of the search for front row gives the answer front row software. It would give some other answers as well, but based on the context and reasoning, the observation would just focus on the thing that it want to target. And it would basically be the front row software, because definitely an Apple Remote would be handling some software. Then thought 3 would provoke the model to think about thought front row is not found. I need to search for front row software. Front row was not found. I need to search for front row software. Okay, the software is front row is the discontinued media center software. And then front row software is controlled by Apple. The thought 4 gave it. So the final answer is keyboard function keys, because it was originally designed for keyboard function key software. So that's how the thought, act, and observation gives the final answer. So that is react. RE is for reasoning and act is for action. And there are some more prompting techniques like tree of thought. Thoughts are built like trees in here, and then self-consistency consists in which the model learns like from meta prompting sort of techniques. Then multiple COT, which involves chain of thought, but multimodal, like it takes image and text and audio, such things combined to provoke the chain of thought. And then graph prompting and generated graph knowledge are a few more techniques. Then the third and last section for the talk is about guide for effective prompting. And I'll show you some pictures with some less effective techniques and better prompting techniques. The first and the most important one is put instruction at the beginning of prompt and use the colons, for example, to separate, like the one we use for doc strings as well, to separate the instruction and context. The instruction and context should be separated properly in order to give a good context. For example, instead of saying summarize the text below as a bullet point list and that directly inputting the text, you should go like this, text and then columns inside, and then you should give the text. Instead of directly giving the text, this is a better approach. Then be specific, descriptive, and as detailed as possible about the desired context, outcome, length, format, and style. For example, what do you want a model to do? What length do you want? What format do you want? What style do you want to follow? You should give it in the instruction, right? Instead of saying right about OpenAI, you should be giving some context and length and format in which you want, like focusing on the recent DALL-E product launch. And then you are telling him the model, what actually this model is, and in the style of, and this is the exactly same variable that you can change according to your need. The variables are always followed according to your need. So it is a better idea to give all the context in order to get a better answer from the model. And then articulate the desired output format through structured text. Like if you are following, suppose you have a big text inside which you have so many people names, specific topics and themes that you need to follow, and the ChatGPT is going to give you all that in a paragraph. Then it will be a bit hectic for you to separate the names and specific topics out of that text, big text again. So it is better to give a desired format. For example, I want company named in a comma separated list. I want people name in this format, specific topic, general theme. So it's better idea to give the desired format first and then give the text. And maybe the query is same, but the desired format would change a lot in the output, definitely. Reduce fluffy and imprecise description. For example, it is less effective to say the description for this product should be short, a few sentences only, and not too much more. In this, ChatGPT might not be able to know that what's in my mind, but it's better to say that I want 2-3 sentences or paragraph to the desired product. Like it's better to say that I want this this type of description of the product. And then instead of just saying what not to do, say what you want it to do. Like, do not say like, the following is a conversation between an agent and a customer. Do not write username for, do not ask the username or password and do not repeat. Instead of saying that, it's better to say the following is a conversation between an agent and a customer. The agent will attempt to diagnose the problem and suggest solution. Like we are giving him the context as well. Instead of just giving the role, we are also giving him the context. Whilst refraining from asking any question related to PII, like the personal information, instead of asking any personal information, you should, such as username or password, refer to the following help article. Like instead of saying that, do not ask username, do not do this, do not do this, it's better to say that if the user is going to ask some information related to this, it's better to redirect it to the following help page. So it's better and it's more effective and I guess more professional as well. Both zero shot or few shot are better. Like for example, extract keyword from the bro text and then keywords, because we are giving here the format as well. It is also good to give an example with the keyword, like this type of keyword. If you are giving such text, I want such type of keywords from it. And then the second text goes here and the model will follow the above criteria of the following the few short example. And for code generation, it is advisable to start with the leading words to nudge or like poke the model towards a particular pattern. For example, you want to write a Python program about a function for ask me a number in mile and then convert the miles to kilometers. It's better to start with just give import. So many times you might have seen that it doesn't follow, the ChatGPT doesn't follow exactly with import, and it start giving like you can do this. So it's better to just write a leading word, import, and the model will know, okay, I need to write the code here for sure. So it's a better idea for code generation specific tasks. Then decomposition and reasoning. Decomposition, it's less effective to, the standard prompting and chain of thought is less effective sometimes, but if you decompose your bigger problem into smaller chunks, it's better. Like handling the task in the subtask handlers. Self-criticism, asking model to fix its output. Like, for example, if you have given a task and the model is going to answer this, out of that answer, you need to say that review your previous answer and find problems with your answer. This technique also works to get better answer, especially in the case of calculations mostly. So, for example, it gives the answer and then you can again say that based on the problems you found, improve your answer. It will firstly find the problems and then you can ask him to improve the problem. So in short, we need to assign a role to the model to get a better answer. Give a format, give example if possible. If you have some example, then you can give in an example to get a better answer. Format the output, give leading words or cues, ask to generate prompt or emphasize on reasoning and chain of thought. And last but not the least, be clear and be specific. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so where do you see the future of prompt engineering? You talked about the evolution of prompt engineering. It seems like it has been more advanced over the couple of years, right?
Yeah, it's from a survey paper.
Yeah. So do you think it's going to last or do you think it's going to be lessen?
I think it's going to be mixed up. People are like, you see there is multiple prompt, multiple COT. So it's not only the chain of thought, people mix the idea. So mixing of idea is mostly happening. I can see from literature, like nothing new, but mixing of ideas. Yeah.
So there have been some articles or efforts on making this models agnostic to the kind of prompts you pass. Like you said, right, it's important to
start with the leading word C.
Mm.
Yeah, this, they are trying to do it with some kind of middle things that they are putting, such that like one I will show yesterday action, some kind of framework. So if that comes, let's say, and then do you think it would be still relevant, the prompt engineering that would go?
If there are text sort of thing changing the behavior of LLM involved, this is still going to be under the field of prompting. Definitely. No, like nothing to do with how they are doing. If they are targeting the changing the behavior or getting output from LLM or even fine tuning for their tasks using prompts, then they are going to fit in the field, I think.
You talked about this train of thought then, where you have this loop going over like thought, so
Question, thought, and answer.
yeah. Is each of those thoughts associated with a new LLM query? Like, are those thoughts created, each of them, by the LLM and then?
No, it's related to learning, like giving a prompt in that way. If you are thinking about in an end-to-end user manner, but if it is in the developer's perspective, then it was a function user. Yeah. So
if you give a query and then the LLM responds with like chain of thoughts,
Hmm.
it would submit each of those thoughts and answers as one response. Okay. Cool.
If we set the temperature and there was another parameter, right, for to make it top T parameter.
There are a few more. Yeah.
Yeah, and to like, to not be very creative, will this still be working?
I don't think so.
This will still work. This is how this framework is designed.
Okay.
From this question and from question thought action, no matter you make it creative or not creative, this process will still be.
The function will still be followed.
So prompt engineering is in this, so if you say the model and this prompt engineering is happening here, right? You change your prompts and you're embedding changes, and then if something is output. Your temperature and everything is happening here, where you get your probabilities, then you are changing the probabilities based on your temperature. Like if your temperature is very high, you are flattening the probabilities. If it's low, it was increasing one of those. So in this sense, prompt engineering with this I don't think it has anything to do with this thing.
So it will work with the base model. Are you saying that, or?
So this is working irrespective of fine-tuned model, base model, or anything. This is prompt engineering is working here. With prompt engineering, you are not changing models, you're not updating your parameters. You are just changing the semantic of your input. So
I think it will,
but the output will change, right? Output will change.
It will affect, yeah.
Because if the prompt is quite large, then it's broken into different context vectors. And each context vector comes after the previous one has been processed. And so if we this thing influences how the sequence of context vectors is generating. So definitely if we make it less creative, then
I think changing the temperature is basically targeting these things, right?
Changing the
controlling the
temperature,
output creativity.
it is the predicting the future works and choosing the future works. So if you are making it creative, then the distance it will go is going to be the long. If you are not, if you are keeping the temperature low, the distance it is going to refer the context will be small. So your number of steps, if you are using chain of thought or tree of thought, the number of steps to get the final answer might reduce if you are keeping temperature low. But the process of question, thought, action, this is going to be the result.
For every query, the
Yeah.
temperature is some number.
Yeah.
So if you change it, you're gonna still get the same.
And
Get an effect on thought.
And
and
Ronnie, regarding your question about prompt engineering, I think this LLM just started. The free is really in a newborn stage. It is going to take a lot more of work. At least this decade, prompt engineering will still be valid. And towards the future, the LLM itself is going to do most of the prompt engineering. The human will not.
Already with,
Mm.
with only three, it's already taking their small prompt and expanding on it and making a better prompt.
It's about meta prompting.
We can take the break
Break.
now.